Hi, I'm Cindy Mumby, and welcome to Inside Harford County, a program where we sit down with community leaders and discuss the issues important to the citizens of Harford County. It's Wednesday, April 17th, and we're airing tonight live from the Harford TV studio. Give us a call and join our discussion at 410-638-3894. We've talked a lot on this program about the services Harford County government provides for its citizens. Behind it all is the county budget. Harford County's budget for fiscal year 2025 was just announced. With me to discuss where the money comes from and where it all goes are Harford County Executive Bob Cassily and Robert Sandlass, Harford County Treasurer. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good to see you, Cindy. Good to be here.
So, Mr. County Executive, this is your second budget since coming into office, but let's go back to the very first budget. That had to be put together pretty soon after you came into office.
Right.
So what was the situation that you were facing?
Yeah, so obviously you're in a rush to put it together, but the budget had to be put together with that we were operating under was a $90 million in savings had been applied in the previous budget to make up for a budget shortfall. And that creates what we call a structural deficit that we really had to address in earnest. And the other challenge we faced was that there was heightened expectations by the folks who we fund because of the COVID relief dollars that had allowed them to grow their own budgets. And that had pretty much expired when we came in. So we were dealing with, we came to bat with a very large structural deficit and really unrealistic expectations that couldn't be sustained without these COVID relief dollars. And then to really round it all off, we found out right after coming into office that our volunteer ambulance service could no longer support the mission, and we had to convert to a fully funded county ambulance service, which was unprecedented, but that was a huge financial hit. So we had a lot of challenges to overcome in that first budget.
Yes, so you did have a lot of challenges. So talk a little bit about what your approach is under your new administration when you're building a budget.
Yeah, so look, I'm first up front is we don't. I'm a fiscal conservative, and we really focused on being a good steward of the taxpayers' money. I know the taxpayers work very hard for the money that they earn and give to the county, and so I feel a strong obligation to make sure that their investment in our county is well returned. I am determined not to put forth any tax increases. We can fund essential services with the money they give to us. And, we really do get tax increases anyway because as property on the real estate taxes, as properties are reassessed, we do get more money in that funding anyway. But the reality is that we can't be spending more than we take in, and the only way to spend more would be to increase the taxes, and we're just not going to do that.
Mm. So, Robbie, the economy is obviously a very big part of the budget, has a big impact. So as treasurer of Harford County, what are you seeing at the state and national level?
I think we're seeing a lot of contradictory numbers and contradictory trends taking place. So if you kind of go back over the past couple of years, coming out of COVID, coming out of the pandemic, we had that period of inflation that kind of immediately preceded it, and for a whole host of reasons. Pent-up demand, government stimulus, a very accommodating Federal Reserve, very low interest rates. And so around this time last year, we started seeing the Fed trying to take action against that high inflation by starting to raise rates. And the consensus started to be that we would probably see a mild recession happen. Well, so far that really hasn't happened, and it's now even starting to look like that while we were expecting there to be some interest rate cuts, that now that may no longer be on the table, or if it is, it's going to be delayed, and a lot of that is now causing a good deal of uncertainty as we try to see what's going on. On one hand, the labor market's very tight, record low unemployment, but there's still a lot of individuals that are not a part of the labor market. They haven't returned, and that ranges from individuals who may have retired early, but there's also just a huge influx or a huge dearth of even like young people that aren't participating in the labor market. So there's a lot of questions as to why all that is happening. Why is the economy on one hand very, very tight and very, rewarding for individuals that want to participate in it. But on the other hand, just doesn't appear to be living up to its full potential.
So is that at the state level? What are you seeing?
Yeah, and I think we're also seeing that at the state level. The Maryland economy has traditionally been focused on the federal government, as well as education, medical facilities, tourism, things like that. And a lot of those areas have experienced strong growth in the past several decades, and particularly on the government side in the COVID and post-COVID period. But now there's this belief that might be throttling back. And so with that, again, while the state of Maryland has record low unemployment, its overall rate of growth seems to be kind of lagging that of the rest of the country.
Okay, so how does all of that manifest itself locally in the local economy? What's the outlook, and what are some of our strengths and weaknesses?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we're trying to get a handle on. And we'll talk about this a little bit when we talk about county revenues. Is that obviously the Harford County is a part of the greater Baltimore economy, which is really a part of the greater Washington economy. And we have strong influence, our local economy is strongly influenced, of course, by Aberdeen Proving Ground, which is a really strong fundamental block, provides a lot of good jobs. We'll often talk about this when we go up to New York for our credit rating, is that Aberdeen Proving Ground is generally number 1 or number 2 in military bases with advanced degrees. So that produces a lot of good paying, 6-figure type jobs, and government contractors and the like. That is oftentimes a little bit kind of recession proof. So we have that going for us. But as with the rest of the state of Maryland, we are dealing with some of the challenges. We do have very high labor costs here. There's a relatively high tax rates. There's limited opportunities for growth and development. So we're kind of along for that, for those trends.
And we have the blueprint too in Maryland, which is affecting expenditures locally in all counties across the state.
Yes, Maryland has a lot of
reform.
Maryland has a lot of mandated government spending, a lot of mandated labor practices and the like, which of course can provide societal benefits, but at the same time do provide a cost that some other competing jurisdictions, the North Carolinas, the South Carolinas, the Floridas, may not be dealing with. And it's part of the challenge you're starting to see now across the country is between some of the more higher tax, higher regulated areas and the more lower ones as when you see where people are moving to.
So let's kind of make the connection now. We've talked about the economy. Let's make the connection to the revenue that county government receives. What are the main sources of county revenue and what are the trends? Yeah,
so again, we're seeing a little bit of a mixed story there. 2 primary revenue sources the county deals with are property tax and income tax. And I'm also going to throw in our recordation and our transfer tax, which are closely related to the real estate market and do provide a good chunk of the funding for our school construction projects. But property tax, very strong. Property tax, though, is based upon assessments that are done by the State Department of Assessments and Taxation, and they're phased in over a 3-year period. And that's a case where we have our strongest assessment growth that we've seen since the Great Recession 15 years ago. We just reassessed the southern end of the county. It was up about 22%, both residential and commercial up strong. And and why is that? Again, Harford County is a favorable place to live, favorable place to put your business, has a lot of strong infrastructure and all of that. And so while we saw an increase in housing prices and home sales and all during the pandemic and the post-pandemic period, that drove up those assessed values. So we expect our property tax revenues to grow by about 5% next year, which is the good part. Now the recordation and the transfer tax, that's kind of going in the opposite direction because right now, while our home values are holding tight, the number of sales has dropped off dramatically, and that's largely due to interest rates. One of the things we find out there is that if you have a 2.5%, 3% mortgage that you were able to either buy or refinance during the past couple of years, you don't want to move now. And so there's no inventory. So when homes do go on the market, they generally are snatched up relatively quickly, but there's just not enough homes being moved back and forth, which has a direct revenue impact on us. And of course, we were hoping that okay, if the Fed starts to drop these rates, well, then maybe we would see a little bit of a pickup in that. Look, we're probably never going to go back to those 2% rates. But again, if we could get to the 4.5% rate or so, maybe we would see an increase there. And then the income tax has been a real mystery for us, and we've talked about this in a lot of press releases and things like that. In that our income tax this year, through the end of the February distribution, so as of March 1, was $13 million less than it was at the same time last year. That's real dollars. That's not a question of, well, the growth was less than expected. And I'll kind of walk back a little bit with this because I know it's an area of big big interest. We knew that income tax had grown a lot during the post-COVID period. Again, there was really strong wage growth. Places were giving out bonuses left and right. People were getting raises. The stock market was doing really well, particularly in 21. There were some changes at the state level that had to deal with tax credits and all. And so we saw a huge increase in our income tax. One year it went up by like about 21%. So we knew that there was going to be some give back. And we went into this year thinking like, okay, we're going to see some of our reconciling payments go down. We're going to see some of those capital gains give back that we saw in some of the years, but we still thought that the withholding was going to be strong. And that's not what we saw. At least that's not what we saw at the state level. So we've experienced 2 consecutive quarters, the third quarter and the fourth quarter, statewide, where withholding is down. And that's normally something you would see more or less during a recession. And that kind of goes back to what's happening in this labor market as we try to figure it out. Now, there's a couple of theories here. One is, when it comes to those income tax distributions, they're coming in at the state level, those big quarterly distributions. All the money's coming into the state, and the state says, okay, Harford County, when we last did this, you got 4.2% of the pot, so we're going to give you 4.2% of this. And next year, we'll see if we were right or wrong, and we'll do the true up on a reconciling. So there is a possibility that what we're seeing now is just something that might be happening at a statewide level, but Harford County might actually be okay because of that strong bulwark of average proving ground, or maybe not. And then this is one of the big concerns I think that we're starting to have is there something going on with the local labor market? Are we losing residents to some of these lower tax states? Are people relocating to the Floridas and the Tennessees and things like that? And that's something that it will take us a real long time to figure out if what we're just seeing is a kind of an economic trend or some glitch in the calendar, or is it something much more of a significant trend?
So just so that folks understand, a little sidebar here, we've been talking about the general fund revenue, but there are 2 big funds that really affect everyone day to day. That's the Highways Fund and the Water and Sewer Fund, and they're funded differently. So talk just briefly about where that revenue comes from. And
sure. The general fund is what funds all of those programs that are kind of enjoyed, if you will, countywide. So all the taxpayers pay for the schools and emergency services and parks and things like that. Our Highways Fund is a special revenue fund that was set up in the charter. And the idea behind that is that only the county residents, that is the county residents who don't live in the municipalities of Bel Air, Aberdeen, and Havre de Grace, should pay for the county roads. These are the named roads. The state takes care of the numbered roads, so your Grafton Shops and your Wheel roads and places like that, county residents pay an additional property tax of 14 cents for the maintenance of those roads. We also get our share of the highway user revenue in order to pay for that. And then the people who live in the municipalities, they pay town taxes to take care of their various town roads. And this has been an area that's been under some stress lately, of course. Well, I should say lately, the past 15, 20 years. It seems like it was yesterday. But the state used to provide us with about $15 million of highway user revenue, and now they provide us with about $3 or $4 million of highway user revenue. Well, we have 1,000 road miles to maintain, and so what that means is that almost all of our road miles are being paid for with property taxes dedicated to this purpose. And everyone's vehicle registration and their gas tax and things like that are largely paying for state transit projects, state transportation projects, things along those lines.
All right.
Then the water and sewer is also only for those people that are on the water and sewer system. So if you live in the development envelope and you get you have a water pipe coming to your house, you're paying for that with your quarterly bills. If you're on well and septic, then you're not paying for that. You're having to cover the cost of your own well and your own septic. So it's very much an idea of who pays for what services.
Okay, so I think we've kind of wrapped up the revenue side of the picture. So, Mr. County Executive, let's talk a little bit about where the money goes. So overall, your budget for the fiscal year 2025 is flat.
Yeah, pretty flat budget. It's 774 million operating budget. That's a 0.67% increase. We're clearly living up to what I said earlier about living within our means, or living within the taxpayers' means. Some modest areas of increase within the budget, but those are, for the most part, offset by decreases in other areas. We're really striving hard to reduce our dependence on spending our savings for ongoing operating. We've been tightening the budget. My directors have been reviewing operations each year that this entire year to try to find efficiencies, reduce expenses, improve efficiencies to try to save some funds, and they've made a lot of progress with that, but obviously there's still tough times. So what we're looking now is still a tight budget, and we're looking at about $2.7 million will be left at the end of this budget. At the end of next year, $2.7 million will be left in our savings. So it doesn't give us a lot of flexibility here. This is tight. It's a tight operation.
So you've talked about efficiencies. Can you be specific and talk about some of the cost savings that you've identified?
Yeah, look, we consolidated our labor force, eliminated a number of leased properties. The county was leasing a lot of properties. We've got out of some leases, consolidated our folks back in here. We've eliminated a lot of just cost within the individual department, cut certain line items. We did a retirement incentive program this year to encourage the folks who cost more to keep on the county payroll to go ahead and retire, and that way we can either not backfill that position, delay backfilling that position, or fill it with a much a more junior person who wouldn't cost as much. And all those savings are what's really going in now to provide very modest salary increases for our county employees, which would this year we're proposing a 1% COLA, costing of living adjustment, and a $1,000 merit increase for across the board for all the county employees.
Okay, so what are some of the areas of the budget that did increase?
Okay, public safety. That's what increased, was public safety. We did salary increases for law enforcement and correctional officers, the folks in uniform. They're getting a 1% cost of living and a step increase. Our state's attorney and circuit court employees are getting the 1% COLA and the $1,000 merit. We've added in uniformed police officers for our schools. We added this year 4 new school resource officers for Aberdeen Middle and High School, and we added 8 new positions in our Department of Emergency Services for the 911 ambulance folks. So, yeah, we have done some increases, but again, this is public safety, and safety comes first.
So let's talk about schools.
Yeah. Another
big part of the budget.
Yeah. So education is a priority. It's got to be a priority. That's our future. We got to continue to invest in our children. I attended Harford County Public Schools. My children attended it. My grandchildren are attending our schools. I've got family members who are teaching in our public schools. I'm very committed to public education, the long-term success, the immediate success. And our schools continue to receive by far the largest portion of the county budget. This year it's $315 million on the operating side. That's essentially flat from what we did last year, but there are no cuts. That's $1 million over the state mandated, they call it the maintenance of effort, where you have to provide a certain level depending, we could have, it's not, we're the same dollar amount, but basically because the number of students has gone down, we're $1 million above the maintenance of effort. And we're also providing over $66 million on the capital side for some great projects. We're the construction at Homestead Wakefield Elementary School is moving forward. We're funding a new elementary school for the Harford Academy, which would include both a school for our most severely disabled kids, as well as another elementary school. And we're doing major upgrades to Aberdeen Middle School, C. Milton Wright, and to high school, and to Harford Tech High School. So, all in all, it's a sizable investment in education for this year, as in other years.
So even still, the schools have asked for even more money.
Yeah.
What would be your response?
Well, yeah, so we talked earlier about the fund balance and how much is available. And we talked about how at the end of this year, our fund balance would be just over $2.5 million. Well, the schools also have a fund balance. And your fund balance for the schools are money that we gave the schools in prior years that didn't spend. So these are taxpayers' money that the school said we need, but they didn't spend it. So that goes into, it's their savings from prior operation years. So the school's sitting on a sizable fund balance. It's a $99 million fund balance, but obviously there's a big chunk of that would be what we call restricted. They've already allocated it for certain key priorities. But what we do know is that they've got over $40 million in what we call unassigned fund balance, which is available. So the schools have asked us to the $315 million we propose in operating. They said they wanted $40 million more. Well, my response has been, you've got that $40 million. It's in your savings account, and I don't have it, and the only way I can get it will be to raise taxes. Well, I'm not going to raise taxes because the school system is sitting on $40 million in money that the taxpayers already allocated. So I think that the schools have really got to work with us. They need to redirect more of their funding to the classrooms and look at how they're operating and reduce, as we've done throughout the county, really work hard to reduce their operating costs. And I'm confident we can do that without taking away teachers and without taking away our after-school programs and the like. We can do this. We got to work together. We got to work smarter, more efficient, more effective. And I'm committed to working with the schools to do that.
And the libraries and community college, kind of the same situation?
Yeah, they're flat funded for both of those. The library is sitting on a fund balance of about $12 million, and the community college is sitting on a fund balance of about $140 million. So they're well positioned. We work closely with both of those. They're great entities, and they understand our predicament, and I appreciate their cooperation in working with us in these difficult times.
So, Robbie, so far we've talked about funds for ongoing operations, but there are some major capital projects that we fund. Talk a little bit about how we pay for these big facilities, schools, and the like. Sure.
So when it comes to your long-term assets, those are largely paid for by issuing debt, by bonds. And the county normally issues 20-year debt, which we send out to a competitive bid. Normally we'll receive 13 or 15 different bidders. Some of the biggest names in the investment worlds, the Banks of Americas, the Citigroups, are bidding on our bonds. And in order to do that, we have to get a credit rating first and foremost. And so that's what I kind of alluded to earlier about the presentation we make to the analysts in New York. And Harford County has a AAA from all three. That's the highest you can get. And what that does is, they look at both a bunch of metrics. What is our budget flexibility? What is our revenue growth? What is our rainy day funds? Things like that. And they're also looking just for kind of get an understanding for our ability to make hard decisions and our ability to be able to reallocate and to change course and all of that, because they want to know that you're willing to do that. So it's a little bit of art, it's a little bit of science. And then we also will use other forms of funding in the capital budget as well. There are some state dollars that come in. There's some sometimes we use cash for some things like vehicles and things like that. But again, it's largely debt financed.
So, Mr. County Executive, aside from the schools, maybe let's talk about some of the other major capital projects that the budget funds.
Sure. Look, even in these difficult budget times, we got to continue to move forward as a county and invest. So some of the great things that I'm excited about is, we now are the proud owners of about 1,200-acre park on the Oakington Peninsula. It's on the water between Havre Grace and Aberdeen with 2 miles of waterfront. So we're investing in the utility of that park. We're doing the planning, so you'll have trails, hiking and biking, and trails and waterfront access. We're looking at, we'll be constructing the Joppatown, or beginning construction, the planning for the Joppatown Activity Center, athletic fields, regional parks, multi-purpose recreational facilities. We've got a couple of fire departments that we're going to be moving forward on. We still rely on our volunteer fire services, so we've got Riverside Fire and EMS station that's ready for construction. Our Whiteford Volunteer Fire Company, we're moving forward with the design for a new station. Our detention center, unfortunately, is requiring additional expenditures. Some repairs already. It shouldn't, but it does. And we're providing our sheriff's office with additional body-worn cameras, in-car cameras, mobile data terminal replacements, and we run a fairly large sheriff's office fleet for the sheriff's office, and we've got to replace number. As you can imagine, police operations are tough on cars, so we're replacing a lot of that fleet to make sure our law enforcement has the best that they can have.
And I'm sure we've got road projects and a lot of other things, but just wrapping up here, transparency is very important. It's a big budget. There are a lot of line items. How can folks get details on the budget?
Yeah, so please go on our webpage, the Harford County webpage. You'll find our budget on the webpage. You can see it on the screen there. That it's www.harfordcountymaryland.gov. That's our homepage, and the web. It links you there to our county budget. You can get all the detail. It's a lot, and you can peruse it to your heart's content.
That's all the time we have. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today. Thanks for watching Inside Harford County, airing exclusively on Harford TV. Please join us again next month. I'm Cindy Mumby.